Hello, my name is Marcella, and today I will be discussing lab grown meat compared to traditionally harvested meat, along with the plant based alternatives. This topic has become increasingly relevant over the last several years because more people are paying attention to animal welfare, environmental sustainability, and where their food really comes from. As the global population continues to grow, concerns are increasing over whether or not traditional meat production can remain sustainable in the long run. At the same time, plant based products are becoming more and more common in grocery stores, restaurants, and while lab grown meat technology continues to advance. Because of this, the future of food production is becoming an important discussion for consumers, farmers, and society as a whole. And so, what truly is lab grown meat? Lab grown meat, also known as cultured meat, is made by taking animal cells and growing them in a lab setting inside something called a bioreactor. And a bioreactor is basically a large tank that gives cells nutrients in the proper environment to grow into meat tissue. Plant-based alternatives are different because they are made entirely from plants, such as soy, wheat, or pea protein, but they are designed to taste and look very, very similar to meat. Think of this such as tofu or bean burgers. Sometimes they are not made to look exactly like their animal byproduct, but they are made to give very, very similar nutritional values, and this is typically for vegans or vegetarians that very grasp towards that. And so, one of the biggest discussions surrounding lab grown meats versus traditionally harvested meat is ethics. A lot of people believe it is more ethical to consume plant based products because animals do not have to be slaughtered in order to produce the meat. In traditional meat production, especially large scale farming operations such as poultry farms or feedlots, there are many concerns about how the animals are housed and treated. For example, many poultry farms advertise chickens as cage free, but that doesn't always mean the conditions are good. Many chickens are still packed tightly into warehouses where they barely have any room to move around. Even free range chickens may technically have access to the outdoors, but sometimes those conditions are so overcrowded that they never actually make it to the outside before they are sent to slaughter. And because of this, plant based products are seen by many people as a more humane option since the meat is produced without having to raise and kill a large number of animals for our consumption. Plant based products also completely remove the need for slaughter of animals entirely. However, there are still many concerns on both sides. Many consumers still worry about the hormone and nutritional additives of these plant based products. But at the same time, traditional meat production also receives a lot of criticism over antibiotics, growth hormones, and feed additives used in livestock production. But this is where there is still a lot of debate on which opinion is actually healthier or better overall. But a lot of this is led by misinformation and mislabeling on meat products. A lot of consumers don't realize what the actual labeling means, and that's where consumers have to do their own research to decide which one they would like to go with. So, another major factor in this debate is sustainability. Traditional meat production uses a huge amount of water and other resources. For example, producing 1 pound of pork requires about 720 gallons of water, while chicken requires 520. And in comparison, soybeans require about 260 gallons, wheat requires 220 gallons, and corn only takes about 150 gallons per pound to produce. When you look at those numbers, it becomes really easy to understand why people are now worried about the sustainability in meat production in the long run, as those are limited resources. When we're out, we're out. And these environmental concerns are also linked to a lot of livestock production as cattle releases methane gas, which is one of the major greenhouse gases contributing to climate change. Plant-based alternatives generally produce fewer greenhouse gas emissions because they don't rely on raising livestock. Research from the Stanford Sustainability even suggests that reducing meat consumption and increasing plant-based foods could help lower greenhouse gas emissions significantly. So, even though there are potential ethical and environmental benefits of plant based products, feasibility is still one of the biggest challenges. Right now, lab grown meat is extremely expensive to produce, and in some cases, it can cost from hundreds to thousands of dollars per pound to produce just because of the specialized equipment and the nutrients and technology that are required to go into the meat. And so, because of this, it's currently not realistic for widespread use, and plant based alternatives are much more accessible and affordable right now. Even though products like plant based burgers may seem expensive in stores, they are still far cheaper to produce than cultured meat. And this makes it more practical for a widespread option for companies and consumers. And this becomes especially true when you look at the rising grocery prices, as we're having the lowest number of cattle in years. And so, as this number of cattle continues to decrease, it may be a better option to start reaching for those plant based products as those grocery prices start to increase. And so, another important factor to consider is social acceptance. Society is becoming more and more open minded towards plant based products, and many restaurants now include vegan or vegetarian options because that demand has increased. However, many consumers still view lab grown or plant based products as unnatural or synthetic, and this can become parallel to the diamond industry, where many people originally preferred natural mined diamonds over lab grown ones. But over time, people have become more accepting of lab grown diamonds and even prefer them because of the similar quality, they look identical, and due to the ethical concerns of mined diamonds. And so I think that lab grown meat may eventually follow a similar path as the technology improves and the price decreases. So, this is a topic that truly matters to each and every one of us because it not only impacts us as consumers, but it impacts farmers, the environment, and overall food consumption worldwide. So, farmers could face major economic challenges if alternative proteins continue to become more and more common. Consumers are also being pushed worldwide to think more carefully about where their food comes from and how it is produced. So, as a society, we truly have to figure out how to balance that animal welfare, sustainability, affordability, and balance food production for a growing population. Overall, both traditional meat and lab grown meat have advantages and disadvantages. Lab grown meat and plant based alternatives may help reduce animal suffering and lower environmental impacts, but they still face issues involving cost and consumer acceptance. Traditional meat production is still the most common source of protein worldwide, but concerns surrounding its sustainability and welfare are causing many people to reconsider what they're choosing to feed themselves every day. And so, this is a topic that will likely develop within the next couple of years, especially as social media grows and we are starting to truly see where our food is coming from.